We coming back from the West, looking real good. Nets fans, let's talk a little basketball.
Top on. Top on. Top on.
How you like me now? I go blow. That's the shit that moves crowd, making every ghetto foul. Samuel, I really like the way our team looks coming off this West Coast trip. I feel like the pieces are in the right place. I feel like the attitude is right. I I don't see too much wrong, man. I want you to play devil's advocate though, right? Not to look for wrong, but give me and the Python listenership a a state of the union, so to speak. Where are we right now, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be uh, content with right now. I mean, the West Coast trip was awesome, even considering how many people were out and them just plugging in different players and it working well. I mean, I think the if you have trepidation about the team, it's that long term, how is this all going to work? Integrating everybody back in, specifically Kyrie, and also what's going to happen um, if there's another COVID spout, like how I mean, people were saying this about the NFL, and I think it's true with the NBA. Having your team vaccinated and boosted is actually now going to become a competitive advantage. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how vaccinated the Nets are right now, and I'm curious to find out. But I'm hoping they do everything in their power to. Besides Kyrie, who I would assume at this point, we haven't talked about the Kyrie thing in a little bit, but I assume at this point he's both not going to get vaccinated, and I expect Mayor Adams to probably change the mandate rules, given that every other city seems to be giving exemptions to athletes.
I wouldn't expect it, but I wouldn't listen. When someone is a politician, right? It's the mood. The mood could decide whether he does something or does not or does not. What are people's mood? The thing about Omicron, excuse me. I want to call him Omicron because of my. You don't know what Transformers is, Sam. But anyway, um, if if Omicron hits people, but the death rate doesn't skyrocket. We're still about 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away from really knowing how this uptick is affecting the death rate. It may be politically okay if people are just getting sick. If the hospitals start to be able to manage the stress on having all these people catch it, puts on hospitals and the resources in the city. I I think he would do it. Only because I'm not seeing the death rate numbers, so he could politically, with have the political cover of at the time of making the decision, people weren't dying. Now, at this time right now, the infection rate is super high. But if the death rate, which is, like I said, you're not going to see for another 2 weeks what the death rate is looking like. If the death rate makes it politically untenable, then I can't see it happening, Sam. But at the same time, if it's good, and trust me, things like the Nets winning a championship, things like the mood and the attitude of the constituency, or sometimes referred to as the mob. That's gonna play into how this decision gets made. So he's a politician. Expect him to do a political thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think me and you were rightfully thought it was crazy that he was gonna ease up any mandate, considering that everything that's going on in the world. And I agree with you that it still does seem kind of like a far-fetched idea. It just does seem like now he has some, and this is obviously isn't a political podcast, but I think he
Right.
does have some political breathing room.
Yeah, if Boston did it, look,
Because
they did it.
Boston,
LA did it. You know,
yeah, like I mean, it seems like every city besides San Francisco, and I think that the entire Warriors are vaccinated, so it doesn't even matter anymore. Like,
right.
I mean, Boston, Philly, LA, the state. When I found out that there was like a Staples Center loophole that like no one really ever talked about, that because LA was always mentioned as one of the teams that was as strict as New York and San Francisco, but it seemed like that was not the case. And so I think
They snuck something in there very recently.
yeah, so it seems like as all these East Coast cities, do what they're doing and giving exemptions to athletes, and I'm sure it'll continue to go even to maybe more blue or purple cities. I think it does give it gives Adam some leash in order to be able to make a small change. And honestly, I think like a couple months ago, I would have said would have been political suicide, but I think that it's at this point it probably wouldn't even be that big of a deal.
At this point, like, look, we've been good in New York. We don't have a high rate of anti-vax, folks here. We're well above 80%. But where we've been bad is in neighborhoods where people like me live. Like, well, in my neighborhood where I live, used to be a very brown place. It's not a brown place anymore. It's like the United Nations where I live in Bed-Stuy now. However, where people like me who look like me, black people, live in the city, COVID is high, and the death rate is high, and the death rate is higher than the rest of the city. And so, our first African American mayor since David Dinkins, which that goes back to 1990. Our first African American mayor in the city is not gonna take the first few months to be seen as someone who's irresponsible or makes a blunder in terms of the optics, in terms of an influence that a person like Kyrie has. He's got to be responsible, understanding that if he makes new rules for Kyrie, he's also talking to his black constituency. Now, that may not even matter. That it may matter more the people who can afford to buy seats in Barclays Center are happy. I can't answer that at all. Like, I will admit that in my conversations with the mayor, I would be embarrassed to to take that opportunity to speak to New York City's mayor to talk about Kyrie. But he knows I'm a Nets fan. He knows I make Nets content, and we did have a little joke about it. I think it's crazy though, Sam, that Nets fans are tweeting at him, and some of that trickles in. Nets fans who aren't even from the city are tweeting at him, telling him what he should and shouldn't do in terms of the mandate. That to me is unacceptable behavior and crazy, because at the same time, if you would dare tweet at Kyrie to get vaccinated, the Kyrie flying monkeys would appear and attack you on Twitter. So I don't see why someone who has a serious job to do, a constituency to look after, and a collective psyche that he's trying to move into the direction of doing what's good for the public health. It's insane that we would be infants and attack this man because you want Kyrie to be able to do whatever he wants and play unvaxxed. Right. That's silly.
No, I look, me and you are in lockstep on this issue and have been the whole year. And going full circle. I mean, that is honestly, besides injury, which is always a thing, especially with the big three. I mean, that's the thing I'm most concerned about. Like, what I don't want to have happen is the Nets in a fight for, to get the 1 seed late in April or whenever, or they're in the playoffs, and then there's some isolation thing where they have to be out for more days because
Do
they're
you
not
think?
vaccinated or whatever.
Do you think the 1 seed matters? I have a
I,
wacky theory about the 1 seed and how the team looks at it.
I think they clearly care about it because the lack of the lack of the lack of rest that KD had for a while, even when their record was great, I think shows that they definitely care. I mean, there were multiple games that he could have sat that we thought that I was asking for him to sit, and you would text me back being like, dude, this guy is playing every game because he freaking loves the sport, and you got and you were right, and so I don't know. I think if they didn't care about it, they would have dropped a couple of games, and KD and Harden wouldn't have played in a couple of games already. I think they definitely want. I mean, look, right now they would play, like the winner of whatever the play-in bullshit would be between like the Hornets and the Wizards and the Celtics, and then in the second round they'd have the winner of the Heat and the Cavs, and they would avoid the Bulls and the Bucks until the finals, Eastern Conference Finals, which I think does matter.
I think people are incorrectly viewing what Kevin Durant cares about. I wanna speak on this because it's so important to me that Kevin Durant's experience in New York is a great one, to the point where like someone like Clyde, he won a championship here. He lives, locally when he doesn't, live in the islands. But he owns the city. He's the last champion in NBA basketball that we've had, and there's an asterisk next to Dr. J. It's like, I think he cherishes his Dr. J cherishes his Nets championship. It felt very real to him, and the best players, at least two players, were playing in the ABA. It was a very similar thing. And I think that championship deserves to be appreciated. But Kevin Durant, I think, has this worldview of himself, of what he could be. And I like to call it the LeBronification of superstardom. Because when Michael Jordan did it, when Larry Bird did it, when even Isaiah, those guys, they didn't cash in on superstardom the way LeBron, cashes in. Like there's no doubt LeBron is going to own a team and all of those things. But the hierarchy of who is the greatest and what they play this game for, it's clear for me. It's clear to me that one, the first boxes that KD needed to tick was, I need to just get a couple of championships out of the way. Boom. That's the Golden State Warrior experience. Now, I need to add at least Kobe level of MVPs. That's what he's going for this year. Not that he's like the type of dude to be butthurt about winning an MVP, because I'm not saying he's that, but I think he's that dude that wants, that his competitive spirit wants to leave this game being able to say that he was one of, like, you got to talk about him with Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, and LeBron. You got to have the conversation. You've got to mention Kevin Durant when you mention those names. When you mention Bill Russell, when you mention Dr. J, you have to talk about Kevin Durant. And I think it's that wide of a conversation, but I think it's obvious he's playing for more, and that actually feeds into the Kyrie conversation too. I think Kevin Durant and Harden were cool with what the decision the team made, but at the end of the day, they were looking at the minutes that KD was racking up, the pressure and the toll that they was putting on his body, and they said, for this man's legacy, who's committed to us, who's given us everything that we wanted, like, why are we punishing? Who does Kyrie really hurt in this whole thing if it's not Kevin Durant? because nobody's gonna say, "Oh, he picked the wrong teammate." That's part of the superstar